I gave the album a listen through this morning, the full album, a whole listen through. One of the things that most impressed me about it was in some of the songs, the accuracy to the spirit and the detail. Now, oftentimes you'll hear covers like, okay, that's cool. I'm like, wow, that really brought out the essence of the original song by the other artist. How much was that intentional on some of these songs to hew close to the originals?
Very intentional. For instance, a Dan Fogelberg song, I basically, as lead guitar player, copped Dan's solo because that's the solo that everybody expects. And then on other songs, we played around with it a little bit or added, an accordion or a harmonica where there wasn't one on the original. So the main thing in my mind as producer of the record was I wanted to, like you said, to keep true to the original and true to that great music of the late 60s and 70s that will never happen again. The 70s was an amazing decade for new music, and Firefall's always been about the songs first and foremost. So, love the songs.
What would be the closest to a Firefall element that is brought in? I mean, obviously you hear the voice, certain elements of the band you could just hear in a surface sense, but how do you put in that special seasoning of your band on these songs, whether a listener can identify it or not?
Right. Well, that's a really good question, and I don't know if there's a really conscious thing that goes with that. I've been making Firefall records since 1975, and that's, what I'm best at, and that's what I do. And when you put, even with, a different vocalist than one of the original two guys, Rick or Larry, the spirit of Firefall kind of shines on through. And that was one of the fun things about making these Friends and Family two records, the first one 2 years ago and this one that's just come out now. We put our own little flavor to it, even if we keep it very much like the original. And then there's some songs where we stray a little bit. It was just, a loving exercise, and, that music of the 70s will never happen again, I think.
It's really awesome music of that era. And noticed Dan Fogelberg's gotten a couple covers now through the first Friends and Family, and this one, of course, the Flying Burrito Brothers, and of course there's the lineage there. If you could do a cover album of like one or two acts entirely, am I on the right track here, or is there a certain band or a certain singer where you would go, okay, we could do a whole Friends and Family : this act?
Well, actually, it's interesting that you ask that, because after two records, the Friends and Family 1 and 2, of other people's songs, I'm working on a new Firefall album of new Firefall songs, because that's what we've always done. And I don't know that I would do one, Fleetwood Mac. Let's do, 10 songs of Fleetwood Mac. I think that, what we did with Friends and Family, which was picking one of the best songs by either Fleetwood Mac or the Doobie Brothers or Lynyrd Skynyrd, was the way to go.
What's your favorite cover on this album?
I don't think I have one. As you can imagine, making each one of those songs and bringing them to fruition was wonderful in itself. And when you have 12 songs on an album like we do on Friends and Family 2, I don't think I have a favorite. I do like our version a lot of Go Your Own Way by Fleetwood Mac, and the Stephen Stills song, Love the One You're With Wynonna Judd, was great. By the way, on Mr. Soul by Buffalo Springfield, I asked our friend Richie Furay, who had been in Buffalo Springfield and Poco, if he'd sing on Mr. Soul, and he ended up singing the same exact harmony part with me in 2025 as he did with Neil Young back in 1968. So
nice.
That's pretty historic.
Yes, that, oh boy, that, not knowing that now particularly, I saw he was on the track list. I'm going to have to go back and give that one another close listen and really lock that in. Well, that leads to my next question, actually. Which session, if there was one particular, which session was maybe the most standout one, given all the guests of varying levels of history and fame and connection? Which one was the most memorable as you're working on this album?
Oh, boy. Well, maybe Shaken by the Eddie Money song, which has Cactus Mosier playing drums and Kenny Passarelli from from Hall & Oates and Elton John Band. You know, that was a really fun song to do. And then me on lead guitar, I kind of just copped the feel of what the original lead guitar player had done on the Eddie Money song, but I didn't learn lick by lick and try to duplicate it. I just wanted to pay honor to it.
I couldn't help but notice that there are back-to-back songs with Eddie Money on that one, Shaken going into I'm All Right with the guest vocal in the bridge, the pre-chorus, I should say. Was that intentional, or did that just happen to work out that way?
It just happened to work out that way, and in fact, I didn't know until somebody that I did an interview with last week told me that Eddie Money sang on that Kenny Loggins song, and I went, wow, who knew that? I didn't.
I know. It doesn't entirely sound like him either. When I was pointed out to me a ways back, I was like, wait, what? That is Eddie Money, and I didn't have any idea either.
Yeah, Eddie, what a great guy. He was one of the funniest human beings I've ever met, you know, and he passed too early for sure.
For sure. So to wrap up here, you mentioned the next album. Give a preview of the process about, is there a ballpark timeline? Is there any particular artistic, creative approach you're taking to this next project?
Well, I'm writing a lot of songs, and some of them aren't appropriate for a band named Firefall, you know. And, you know, I always look back to, Firefall's roots and the sound of our first couple of albums, songs like Cinderella and, you know, Livin' Ain't Livin' in Mexico, where I got to play lead guitar on Rick Roberts' great song Mexico. You know, I want to keep that spark going. So when I'm writing songs or looking for songs by other writers, you know, I try to keep that acoustic guitar vocal thing, which nowadays not too many people are doing.
Well, it's something we can look forward to having at some point. And then, of course, you guys are not going to be that far from us over in Minnesota come November. Plenty of dates before that. And, of course, the new album that should be given a listen first by anyone listening to this. Friends and Family 2 from Firefall. Good to chat with you today. Thank you so much for doing this, and we'll look forward to more coming from you in the future.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.